So there's an important concept that we're going to talk about today, and that is the concept of dreams. There is an Om Academy on sleep. I encourage you to watch it. It's 20 minutes, and it goes through some of the mechanics of sleep. So I'm not going to review that, but dreams are kind of that thing that happens when you dip into sleep. So dreams are the graph that so every night when you go to sleep, just to review, you dip into, so this is like depth. You dip in, and in 90-minute cycles, you kind of go in as deep as you're gonna go, and then you come out, and then you go less deep, and then you wake up. Each cycle, usually about 90 minutes. I'm sure that varies from human to human. And this little thing down here, this is where the magic happens. So that little bit right down at the end. According to yoga, a human being needs about 31 minutes of that blue stuff in a night. The brain is more active in sleep than it is during awake. I have to say sleep is the single most abused, and the time for sleep is the single most abused entity in the West. If you go to the East, go to some small village, shorted up into the village, you go into some small village and no one's up after 8 p.m. No one's out. If they are out, there's probably something wrong with them, or they're going somewhere important. Most people, they just go to sleep at 9, and they wake up at like 4. In the West, we kind of want to, I'm a morning person, I'm an evening person, I'm this, I'm that. And sleep is really not appreciated, I think, for what it is. It is the single biggest therapist that you have. If you can go deeper, you can make up your sleep faster. You know, some of you have heard of like Shavasana. Shavasana is the yogic art of relaxing, corpse pose. Every martial art, every yoga, every system has its ways of relaxing into that deep space. And in that space, you can really make up some of this blue REM sleep, level 4 sleep, or whatever it's called. So that's a quick review of that video. Now, what is the human experience of that? It is dreams. So the conscious human experience of what happens and transpires in this is the dream state. Dreams vary. I'm not here to kind of give dreams are very metaphysical. There's like everyone has an opinion on dreams. Please, I'm not interested in kind of entering into controversial areas. So I'm just going to share some concepts that are coming from modern psychology on dreams. And the number one concepts that I'm going to share, number one, is that the dreams are where you, or sleep is where we process information. So if you impair your sleep, and if you impair your ability to sleep in like a undrugged way, time will start going real fast for you. When your sleep is impaired, time will years will fly by. Kids will grow up because you've been drinking. or equivalent drugging or numbing or whatever it is you do, and you're not learning. So one day's learning is fixed in the mind that evening in your dreams. You don't sleep well, or you don't sleep, or you drug yourself to sleep. That's not sleep, that's passing out. True sleep is your brain is more active, not less. And so you don't learn what you should have learned. And what's our only marker for time? It's like what we learn. Oh yeah, I did that. Any of you sleep, walk home, you drive home, and you just don't know how you got there, right? That's an example of time just flying by, nothing registered, but lots happened. Someone cut you off, and someone did this, and then red light, you went through it, or something, right? Like, stuff happened. But it's just all kind of autopilot.
What if you go through an experience like you're awake but you don't remember anything?
Yeah. About dreams or about
okay, you're walking.
Oh yeah, like a blackout kind of
thing.
Yeah,
but you're not on drugs at that point.
So you have to understand that experience and memory is all based on attention. So if you are really diverted, right, your attention is elsewhere, you can lose time. Some people with severe enough trauma, they dissociate so severely that they lose blocks of time. Sometimes during that time, they do stuff. A good example of that is a common example, I should say, is blackout drinking. They're not so intoxicated that they're not able to walk and talk and do things. But this is how people end up in bed with people they don't even know and how they met. Except, whoa, your body and your mind was going, and you don't know where you are. It's kind of scary, actually, when it happens. And the more you sort of engage in that, the worse it gets. So there's a lot of reasons why we lose time, but just remember, if your attention is elsewhere, some other aspect of you can run your body. And in the dream world, right, when we're talking about dreams are all about processing information. And I'm going to specifically say they kind of act subconsciously. So when we dream, so we remember our little diagram, right? We have our consciousness and we have our subconscious. When we start to dream, when we go to sleep, we're kind of drifting in this line becomes blurry, and we kind of drift a little bit into this.
When we're dreaming? Or
when we're sleeping. And the degree to which you recollect what happens there, that's what we call a dream. Dreams can have great meaning. Dreams can simply be a representation of subconscious content. There's a lot to dreams that I don't understand. It's not my place. But I just want to relate some concepts to you that are helpful for recovery. So, a lot of times when we start to heal, our dreams become more active. So we become more active in our dreams. And sometimes we dream of things that we've never experienced, or we don't understand. Dreams work in the world of metaphors. There's whole disciplines of psychology dedicated to dream analysis. Some people journal their dreams. There's no right or wrong about it. What I want you to understand is that when you start to do some healing work, let's say you start to do trauma work, right? You may find that some of this stuff that was really locked away tight enters and comes more higher up, into closer to consciousness. And in that space, you can process it. A lot of folks, they have looping of their dreams. That's a recurring, like a nightmare. Night terror is something that you don't remember. A nightmare is something that you remember. I'm not going to get into these classifications because there's many of them and they're subjective, and I'm quite frankly not the expert of them. But what I want you to understand, I think, is that when you start doing healing work, 12-step work, where you're increasing your inner strength, right? Your inner connectedness to your source of strength, and you build your ability to cope with things, that translates into your dream, your sleep state too. And so you may be surprised what happens. You may be surprised that, content starts to come up into your dream state. And you ask, well, where did that come from? If you've done a lot of bad things, or if you've had a hard life, your subconscious is full, chock full, of lots of experiences that are unprocessed. Many of those are unprocessed because it's not safe to process them. You're protected from those experiences. As you start to heal, you may find that old things surface that you don't really appreciate, that you kind of wish that you didn't remember. NOMS, we have a consent form for our day program because I want people to know what they're getting themselves into. Stuff starts to change, right? Dream content shifts. Some people get alarmed by the shifts in their dream content, and it is helpful to have dreams that are changing and completing. That's the biggest question I ask people. So you have a dream, and it's weird, or it's difficult. Does it complete? Do you wake up in the middle of it? Right? Some people, they get so scared inside the dream, they wake up. They're in it, right? They're in this blue thing, and then all of a sudden they go to awake. So as a person gets more and more internal strength, what they're going to find is they have a greater capacity to complete dreams. A completed dream is a dream where, you can, where you've done a big chunk of work. You see, your body has a lot of wisdom as to where the work is needed. Your mind and body has an innate wisdom about how to approach healing. Just like your wound, does the cut on your hand ask you, oh, should I deploy the fibroblast now, sir? Yeah. What about these white cells? Should I take out these bacteria? Boss, your wounds ask you that? Or do they just do it? They just do it, right? Because you have a whole system that we have not been able to recreate in a laboratory. Wound healing is very complicated. And that's just physical wounds. Your hand is seen. Mental wounds, physical, spiritual wounds. It's no different. There's mechanisms, there's systems that are way above my pay grade. But what isn't above the pay grade is if you complete an experience, what is PTSD? PTSD is a looping, incomplete experience. The assault is still happening. And you just loop. It happens, you dissociate out, it doesn't complete, so then it just stays there. And it again happens again. That's looping. But as soon as you complete it, it goes away permanently. What do? In trauma therapy, in EMDR, we take these things, we bring them up to awareness, with our supervision, with our energy, with our presence. We hold space, right? That's a common term in the world of like healing, right? We hold space, and we do it together. You know, either through talking or eye movements or something, we do something. And what happens is this thing that was looping stops looping. It completes. The information comes together. The dissociated bits come together. It completes, and now it can be stored neatly. Any of you store like a suitcase and just like throw everything in, and versus like neatly folding and putting it in? Which one can you store more information, more clothes? If you neatly fold them, or if you just stuff it all in? Fold it, right? You fold. And it's also easier to take out, it's easier to change, it's easier. Whereas if you like put a bunch of laundry in a thing and you try to find something, you're gonna have to take everything out, take out all the things you didn't want to take out to find the thing you want, and then you gotta put it back in. And they're wrinkled, right? Probably smelly. Because how we store things, it really matters. My wife, when we go shopping or when we go traveling, she always tells me, why don't you you wear clothes for this day, and then at the end of the day, why don't you just like fold it and put it back in the suitcase, so that at the end of your like hotel stay, you don't have a pile of work, right? You just fold it and put it back, and take out another thing, and then fold that and put it back, and take out the other thing. And I tried it once. It's brilliant. It works. It's like efficient. Not how I grew up, but it works. So that's what your brain's trying to do to your subconscious. It's trying to sort out all the laundry that did not get properly folded, and is like just crunched up, creating a stink. So that you can remove one piece of information that's useful to you for learning purposes, and not disturb other pieces of information. That's what a trigger is. A trigger is like someone wore a blue shirt and you were bullied with a blue shirt. You pull out the blue shirt, kind of like recognition, and then all of a sudden that dirty laundry comes out too. It's like, I didn't need that. I gotta work. I gotta go do stuff. It's not helpful. But that's the consequence of not storing the laundry well. So a looping dream is like an unfolded piece of laundry that's like crunched in there. It's just begging to be folded and neatly stored. I wish you could consciously do that. I did the math once on how long it takes to count 1 billion pennies. If you count 100 per minute, and it's about 20 years if you count 24/7. But if you do it in like a sane way, like 8 hours a day, 7 days a week, it's about 20 years. That's just 1 billion. And let's say you have 1 trillion bits of laundry to fold. This is the difficulty with doing this work consciously. Some work does need to be done consciously. Other work needs to be done subconsciously, so it can be done faster. Your dreams are where a ton of that work happens. But you know what? When you're traumatized as a child, you go to sleep scared, your depth of sleeping is compromised. You're in fight or flight mode. Even if you're sleeping, you're not sleeping deep. And children, by their nature, they sleep really deep. Right? So then you develop like a lot of laundry that's all looping in its own way. Those loops, they come up in dreams. They come up in nightmares. And that's okay. Nothing wrong with that. There's some things that you can do. One of the best videos that I've ever watched on dreams is a 5-minute one on by Justin Havens. Justin Havens. It's called the Dream Completion Technique.
Is that the one we watched yesterday?
That is the one you watched yesterday. But I'm just putting this on the YouTube channel. Okay. Dream Completion Technique. It's the best information I've ever found on dreams. That's 5 minutes. He did a great job. Non-profit. They got a grant and they made this thing. He also does flash technique. We use a lot of it now. The thing about the dreams is that they're coming up for a reason. One of the things he talks about in that video is how can you aid this process of completion? Anything that's coming up again and again in your life is just begging for completion. And I'm not just talking about dreams. If this is like the 4th or the 6th domestic violent relationship that you're in, there's a scenario in your life that's coming up again and again. There's something that's causing the looping. And the principle of the universe is that when like the lesson is learned, when what needs to be learned to stop the completion, maybe it's an act of forgiveness. Maybe it's usually something like that. Act of compassion, act of acceptance. And it stops the looping, it gives you completion. That's why people are always talking about forgiveness and love and all of these things. But it's not cliche. But it's become cliche, but it's not cliche. These things really do stop looping. So I want you to think about this. What you do right before you sleep, you have to ask yourself, is this going to help me complete my dream? Is Law and Order right before you sleep going to help you complete your dream? Or some serial killer thing? Or some dark thing? Or drama thing? Some people fall asleep to television. YouTube. Political news. Is that news story going to help me complete my dream? Because whatever you do right before you sleep is going to enter into your dreams. That is one of the biggest opportunities you have to influence your dreams. That's why in a lot of religious practices, they talk about doing some prayers before you sleep. They talk about doing some reading. They talk about doing something energetically elevated. Love energy and stuff. Yeah, you can read your serial novel and fall asleep into oblivion, but are you helping all these bits of information complete? Or are you actually giving gas into the fire? This is why I say sleep is one of the most abused entities in the West. And I'm with you. I've abused my sleep horribly for a long time. But a very early target for us at NOM is someone's sleep. And what inevitably comes up is, why am I dreaming this? I don't know. All I can tell you is, maybe it's divinely inspired, maybe it's just subconscious material, maybe it's a bit of both, maybe there's some lesson in there. There's a million things to do with dreams. But my strongest suggestion is optimize your sleep. Make time for it. Reduce mind-altering substances. I'm not saying don't ever take a sleeping pill. If you haven't slept 3 days, take a sleeping pill. Go get that induced. But work on your sleep. Don't just accept bad sleep. You weren't a bad sleeper as a baby. And if you haven't had a very safe life, learning to sleep is the most important thing. That's what's going to shorten your journey in recovery by like decades, by years. I'm not sure if making sense out of every dream is... Sometimes you may dream about things that like have nothing to do with you, like hangings and whatnot, or this or that you haven't even thought about consciously, but subconsciously lots of stuff is there. Trillions of bits. If you're humble to it, maybe it's like about something you watched. The mind is really vast. It's not tiny. Saying trillions is probably undercalling it. But you also are... You're equipped with a very amazing healing system, too. Sometimes inside of a dream you can come to an awareness. Completion is all about choice points. It's choices we make. If you have the great fortune of becoming aware in a dream, it's a good time to do some prayers. Because that's going to invite some good positive information that maybe will help complete that dream. Every dream is different. If you're being attacked in a dream, one of the things they talk about in the dream completion technique is, then maybe if you're always running from something in a dream, then maybe journal or write or do something that like instills in your mind something empowering, like a big shield. It doesn't have to make sense. But you can specifically, if you have a dream that's looping again and again, there's probably something important in that. And if you resolve that, likely a lot of other things will resolve in your mind. It's worth your attention. At NOM we always talk about leaning into triggers. Because triggers are there for a reason. There's some good information there. Yeah, you can take a sleeping pill. Yeah, you can get high. Yeah, you can drink yourself into oblivion. I know. But you can also choose to do something different too. You can choose how your dreams go and what you do right before you dream. And if you wake up, you've learned the flash technique. Dream content is no different than any kind of conscious experiential content. It may not make sense, but if you dream something, it's connected by a trail of breadcrumbs back to the origin, root, and source. And so if you have any technique, like flash, like prayers, that can process subconscious stuff, you can target that. So if you dream of being chased by a monster, you can apply your prayers to that monster. Say, I don't know what that monster was, but God or higher power help me with that. And you may not understand what's happening, but something's going to happen along that chain. You can also talk to a therapist about that content. That's where a lot of the dream analysis stuff happens. You can talk to somebody about that. And inevitably you can trace things back. I just find there's too much information and limited time. So then I usually just encourage people to build a tool set of skills. If you wake up from a dream, dreams, they, like anything is in any content, that you experience in there is in your head for at least 72 hours up to 3 weeks. According to trauma literature, up to 12 weeks in the working memory. So that's how long it's in there. So you can target those experiences with any modality. Yep, that means that the fight you had with your mom last week is still circling around in your mind, even if it's not top of mind. There's a lot of stuff in your working memory that you thought you got rid of, but it's still there, looping. And it'll continue to loop. After 3 weeks, it'll go really deep down in here. But it's still there, looping. It's consuming energy. Anything that's looping, it takes energy to loop, right? So that's some perspectives on the concept of dreaming. Just to review, dreams are, you may not dream. Some dreams are subconscious. Sometimes you just sleep and you wake up. That's okay. Sometimes you have dreams. Sometimes you have using dreams, like we're using drugs and stuff. Not a bad thing. The biggest question I always ask is, did it seem like they're completing? Or using drugs? If you're using drugs and getting high and stuff, chances are there's a lot of mental stuff going on. Or you're processing. Anyone who's just recently become sober, you got a lot of things you regret, right? Don't think that even though you were intoxicated, that it didn't register in your system. Everything registers. So, you're going to have dreams about it. If you drank for 20 years, you're going to have dreams. But the same principles apply. Dreams are where you process stuff. Not a place to be afraid of. Sacredness in your room, right? They talk about, if you're a Christian, put the cross there. You put some, whatever, mantras and scriptures and whatever, right? Whatever makes you sacred. Let that be present in your sleeping environment. Increase the safety of that. Make your bread. Make your bed. Treat that place where you sleep as a healing space, because it is. And be thankful that you have such a great mechanism inside your mind to bring about completion to a lot of information. So, I'll take some questions.
Yeah, I was just curious if you don't really remember your dreams. Does that mean you're not processing, or?
No. No. Now, if you drinking heavily and and you're passed out and you don't remember, that's different, right? So then that's absence of information. But if you're sleeping and that's a great question actually. A really good question is what's effective sleep look like, right? And one of the biggest predictors of effective sleep is, do you feel refreshed? Do you feel refreshed in the morning? It's not even length of sleep. I find that varies drastically. Do you feel refreshed after you sleep? So, if you don't remember your dreams, that's just fine. Like I said, above my pay grade. The dream world is a different world. Some people, they remember some dreams, not other dreams. I'm like that. Prabjeet, she remembers every dream. She has the wildest dreams. But she does a lot of processing in her dreams. And it's just like a thing that she does. She has spiritual experiences in her dreams. And I come from a low sensitivity. I went to yoga for years and didn't experience nothing. But I just went because, I was dedicated. And over time, I built up my capacity to experience, but I don't experience things like people who are really sensitive do. I've really had to work my sensitivity. So then I used to have very few dreams. Now I have more. So there's that element too of like sensitivity. So I don't have a clear answer to your question, but is your sleep refreshing?
Yeah, for the most part.
Good.
And like I do remember some, but like it's usually like upon awakening for like a minute or two, and
Yes.
then it's gone. But like I vividly remember like 100% of it for like a minute. And
Yeah,
then it's just,
yeah,
like, where
yeah.
did it go? Like,
So what happens there is you drift in, and you're aware, and then when you come out, you know, like and if you have like if you're like sleeping with someone, or you like wake up and you tell them, and they probably think you're like crazy, like you're like, what are you talking about? Like it's just and then once you come out fully, you lose access, right? Sometimes you retain access, sometimes you lose access. If you go real deep, a lot of times you lose access. And that's maybe a good thing, right? We don't have to, you know, in the West, like just this desire to know and understand everything is one of the single biggest things that really impairs progress. It's not just the West now; it's like everywhere. Don't think India and China have it any better, okay? They got the problems in all the same ways now. It's a globalization, right? Great thing about globalization is that everyone's suffering together. But the desire to understand everything and to like stop until you understand everything, it really affects the speed at which you can deal with a pile of it. So, you know, the humility to say I don't get it, and this is in AA. They say let go and let God, right? So what they're really getting at is like, or Christians say Jesus take the wheel. You know, and that's giving up some of that control over your experience, stopping yourself from trying to understand every element of what this complex process is, and maybe just being grateful for it, you know? Like, thank you. I don't really get what all that was about, but thank you. Whatever that is. That's one of those things that helps completion. Gratitude. You know?
Start good.
Other questions? What was that?
Start good, end good.
Start good, end good.
Yeah, one question was, visions, I hear are of some other nature, but I don't really know what the question is that I'm trying to ask. Dreams and visions, are they similar in nature, or are they just the same damn thing?
Above my pay grade.
Okay.
So, I think they appear the same, but what is it? You know, I think that's one of those, like, if it's a vision, right, a prophetic vision, I don't really get much about that. But does it happen? I'm sure it does. But, or is that your subconscious stuff?
It sounds the same.
They may. So but the universal truth is, you know, appreciate what your experiences are and be grateful for them. Whether it's your internal experience or something that's given to you, and then maybe it all makes sense. Talk to some wise person, some elder, someone who gets that stuff, and they can tell you, oh yeah, that's what that wolf meant, or that's what that experience was. Yeah.
I don't know if I want to ask or answer, it just triggered me, I guess. A lot of my traumas are all psychosis based. I guess the hunting and part of me, I spent my a lot of time trying to justify, explain it. I don't even know if I need an answer, I guess, like it's just horrors of everything being, like, killing myself because I thought my dad was kind of like in every time, and I buried, obviously, all of that so deep to continue to use, knowing just trying to understand why that happens to me in psychosis, or is that kind of even a waking dream state?
Yeah, psychosis is a special entity of itself. A lot of people do substances. Hallucinogens in general, they blur this line of conscious and subconscious. So, do so with caution, I would say. It's not always a bad thing. Like there's ceremonial systems, indigenous systems, where you induce a psychosis to help achieve something. But that's not usually the Western context. The Western context is usually addiction or just recreation outside of a sacred context, and buyer beware sort of thing. So the psychosis, when you blur that, you may be surprised what happens, and get more traumas and stuff. The reality is life is complicated. I don't pretend to understand the complication of the mind and life in general. So what I do tell you is that we are where we're at. You're here, good. At least you're here. And we can't take back what we've done or what was done to us, right? We can't take none of that back. We can only move forward. So my hope is that you can have a little bit more appreciation for what happens when you sleep and how it fits into the recovery as a whole. And I think if that's what you do, then that's good. But I always say the rooster has to come home to roost. So there's cycles that if you've set in play, yeah, you know what, if you loved something, at some point you're going to have to grieve something. If you grieve something, I hope someday you'll love something new. There's cycles, completion, and that's the life of, that's the journey. And that's okay. Any other questions? And leave it there. Okay. Like I said, I am not the world's expert on dreams, but they do come up a lot in recovery. So my hope and my prayer is you get a bit of perspective on what these things is, and keep searching, keep reading, keep trying to figure out stuff, and see. Did you learn something new? Was that helpful? Yeah? Okay. And forgive me.